People say you can sense danger before it strikes, that there's a moment, a flicker in time, when your instincts scream at you to run. I wish I had listened. The moment I refused to give up my inheritance, my cruel stepfather, Victor, exploded with rage. His face turned red, and his voice thundered through the room. "How dare you refuse me?" he roared, his eyes burning with something far worse than anger. Before I could react, he grabbed my hair and yanked me back with brutal force. Pain shot through my scalp as the room spun. Then, he shoved me hard, and my head slammed against the cold wall. A sharp, blinding pain exploded in my skull. I collapsed, gasping for breath, my body weak. But what he did next was even worse. My name is Sienna, and I am 19 years old. Life hasn't exactly been easy for me. My parents divorced when I was 14, and since then, I've lived with my mom, Evelyn. My dad, despite the divorce, remained a huge part of my life. He was my rock, my guiding light. But last year, everything changed. He lost his battle with cancer. Losing him was the hardest thing I had ever faced, and just when I thought I was beginning to heal, I was confronted with something I never expected. Before passing away, my father left me $200,000 in inheritance. It was locked away until I turned 19, a safeguard to ensure I had financial security for my future. This money wasn't just a sum to me. It was my father's way of looking after me even in his absence. When my birthday finally arrived, I felt a sense of relief. I now had the means to secure my education and plan for my future. But little did I know, my stepfather, Victor, had his own ideas about my inheritance. Victor had been married to my mom for 6 years, and we never really got along. There was always something off about him, his sense of entitlement, his manipulative ways, the way he carried himself like he was owed more than he had. I tolerated him for my mother's sake, but I never trusted him. My stepbrother, Ryan, was no different. He was Victor's son from a previous relationship, a few years older than me, and just as entitled as his father. They had a way of scheming together, always looking for the next thing to take advantage of. One afternoon, not long after my birthday, Victor called me into his room. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something was off. His tone was unusually calm, almost too casual. I sat down, already uneasy, sensing that this conversation wasn't going to be in my favor. "Sienna, we need to talk," he said, folding his hands together. "It's about your father's money." My stomach twisted. I had a feeling I knew where this was going. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my expression neutral. "What about it?" I asked, though I already knew I wouldn't like his answer. Victor leaned forward slightly, his sharp eyes studying me. "I think it would be best if you handed over that money to Ryan," he said, his voice calm, as if he were making a reasonable suggestion. "He needs it for college. It would be the right thing to do." I blinked in disbelief. "What?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. "You're asking me to give away my inheritance to Ryan?" Victor nodded, unfazed by my reaction. "Yes. He has big plans, Sienna. College is expensive, and your mother and I have already done a lot for you. It's time you give back." I clenched my fists, my heartbeat picking up. That money was left to me by my father. He worked hard for it. It's not just some extra cash lying around, it's for my future. His expression darkened slightly, though he still tried to keep his voice even. "Ryan deserves a future too. You're being selfish, Sienna. Family helps each other." I scoffed, shaking my head. Family doesn't manipulate and steal. If Ryan wants to go to college, he can figure it out the way I have to. Victor's jaw tightened, his fingers tapping against the table. "Don't push me, Sienna. I'm asking you nicely." "And I'm saying no," I shot back, standing up. "You have no right to my money." The air between us grew thick with tension. For a moment I thought he might actually back off. But then his expression shifted. His jaw clenched, his eyes flashing with something dangerous. "You ungrateful little—" Before I could react, he lunged forward, grabbing my hair from behind and yanking me backward. Pain shot through my scalp as I gasped, stumbling. Before I could regain my balance, he shoved me forward, my head colliding hard against the wall. A sharp, searing pain exploded in my skull, my vision going blurry for a second. My knees buckled, and I collapsed onto the floor, my breath ragged. A dull ringing filled my ears as I struggled to process what had just happened. My head throbbed, a sharp pain radiating from where it had slammed into the wall. I pressed my hand against my forehead and felt something warm and wet blood. My breath hitched as dizziness washed over me. Victor stood over me, his chest rising and falling heavily, as if he was just now realizing what he had done. His face twisted in anger, but there was something else behind it, panic. "You shouldn't have disrespected me, Sienna," he muttered, his voice still laced with rage. I forced myself to sit up, ignoring the burning sensation in my skull. "You're insane," I whispered, my voice shaking but firm. "You actually think you can take what belongs to me?" Victor stepped back, running a hand through his hair. "You should think carefully about what you do next," he warned. "If you tell your mother, you'll only make things worse for yourself." His words sent a shiver down my spine, but I refused to let him see my fear. I had been blindsided, yes, but I wasn't broken. Not yet. I needed to get out of there. My legs felt weak as I forced myself to stand. My vision swayed slightly, and I knew I wouldn't last much longer before I collapsed again. I needed help. My mother was still out of town, and I couldn't wait for her return. My hands trembled as I reached into my pocket, my fingers fumbling for my phone. Victor watched me carefully. "Who are you calling?" His voice was tense now, laced with suspicion. I swallowed hard and did the only thing I could think of. I ran. I bolted out of the room, ignoring the wave of nausea that crashed over me. I didn't stop until I reached the front door. My fingers wrapped around the handle just as I heard Victor's heavy footsteps approaching behind me. "Sienna, get back here." I yanked the door open and stumbled outside, gasping for air as I reached the porch. The world spun around me, my vision doubling. Just as my knees buckled, a voice called out, "Sienna, are you okay?" I barely registered my neighbor, Mrs. Carter, hurrying toward me before everything went black. I woke up to the sound of beeping. My eyelids felt heavy, and when I finally managed to open them, the bright white lights above me made my head throb even more. The sterile smell of antiseptic filled my nose, and it took me a moment to realize where I was, a hospital. I tried to sit up, but a sharp pain shot through my skull, forcing me to wince. "Easy, sweetheart," a familiar voice said. I turned my head slightly and saw my mom, Evelyn, sitting beside me, her face pale, her eyes filled with worry. "Mom," my voice came out hoarse. She reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." I blinked, trying to recall everything that had happened. Then, like a flood, it all came back, Victor. The demand for my inheritance. The attack. The blood. The escape. He hurt me," I whispered, my throat tightening. "Victor," he grabbed me, threw me against the wall. My mother inhaled sharply, her hands clenching into fists. "I know," she said, her voice shaking. "Mrs. Carter found you on the porch, unconscious. She called an ambulance. And then she called me." Tears welled up in my eyes. "I didn't know what else to do, Mom. He was trying to steal my money. He was threatening me." Her face darkened with rage. "He's not getting away with this, Sienna. I promise you." A doctor entered the room, glancing between us. "Sienna, you suffered a mild concussion and a head injury, but there's no internal bleeding. You'll need rest, but you're going to be okay." I nodded numbly, still processing everything. My mother turned to the doctor. "When can she leave?" "We'll keep her under observation for a few more hours, but she should be able to go home by tonight." The moment the doctor left, my mother turned back to me, her eyes filled with determination. "Victor is done. I already contacted a lawyer. And the police." I stared at her, my heartbeat picking up. "The police?" She nodded. "Yes. They're coming for him, Sienna. He thinks he can get away with hurting you? Stealing from you? No. He has no idea what's coming." A slow, relieved breath escaped me. For the first time in years, I finally felt like I wasn't fighting alone. That evening, after the doctors discharged me, my mom and I drove home. My head still ached, but the adrenaline rushing through me kept me alert. The closer we got to the house, the more my hands clenched into fists. Victor had spent years manipulating my mother, acting like he was the one in control. But now he was about to learn what it felt like to have everything ripped away from him. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw police cars parked outside our house. Red and blue lights flashed against the walls, and I spotted officers talking to Victor on the front porch. He looked furious, gesturing wildly as if trying to talk his way out of the situation. Ryan stood off to the side, his face pale, clearly realizing things weren't going in their favor. I stepped out of the car, my mother right beside me. There she is, one of the officers said, turning toward me. Sienna, we'll need your statement soon. But for now. This is ridiculous. Victor suddenly barked, interrupting him. He turned toward my mom, his face twisting into a sneer. Evelyn, tell them. This is a mistake. Sienna is exaggerating. She's trying to ruin me. I clenched my jaw, my fingers tightening into fists. You attacked me, Victor. My voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. You tried to steal my inheritance, and when I refused, you threw me against the wall. Victor's face twitched. You're lying. My mother stepped forward, her expression cold and unforgiving. She's not lying, Victor. I have the hospital reports. I have her medical records. And I have every word you said to her recorded. His eyes widened slightly, but he quickly masked his panic. This is insane. Ryan, back me up here. Ryan, however, didn't say a word. He looked at the officers, at me, at my mother, then at Victor. For the first time, his usual arrogance was gone. He was scared. One of the officers sighed, shaking his head. We've heard enough. Victor Owens, you're under arrest for assault, attempted financial fraud, and coercion. Before he could react, the officers grabbed his arms and twisted them behind his back. The sound of handcuffs clicking into place was the most satisfying thing I'd ever heard. You can't do this, Victor shouted, struggling. You can't prove anything. Oh, but we can, my mother said coolly. And the best part? I filed for divorce this morning. You're finished, Victor. His face drained of color as reality set in. Ryan, still frozen, barely had time to react before another officer turned to him. And you, Ryan Owens, are also under arrest for conspiracy and attempted fraud. Ryan's head snapped up. What? No, I didn't touch her. But you knew, I said, my voice unwavering. You knew what he was doing, and you helped him. He looked at me in horror, then at the officers as they moved toward him.
Dad.
Do something. Victor, now fully restrained, glared at me, his eyes filled with nothing but hatred. You'll regret this, Sienna. I tilted my head slightly, my lips curling into a smirk. No, Victor. I think I'll finally sleep peacefully tonight. The officers led them toward the police cars, their shouts of protest fading into the night. My mother and I stood there, watching as the doors slammed shut and the cars drove away. For the first time in years, the house felt light.
Free. Ours.
She turned to me, taking a deep breath. It's over. I nodded, exhaling slowly.
Yeah.
It really is. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. The legal proceedings against Victor and Ryan moved swiftly. With the overwhelming evidence against them, my hospital reports, medical records, voice recordings, and even email trails of their fraudulent schemes, there was no escape. My mother's lawyer made sure every detail was presented in court, leaving no room for doubt. During the trial, Victor tried to play the victim, claiming that I was exaggerating, that he had only acted in frustration. But the bruises, the concussion, and the testimonies from my doctors shattered his lies. The prosecutor presented financial records showing how Victor had attempted to access my inheritance through forged documents, proving his intentions beyond any doubt. Ryan, on the other hand, looked utterly defeated. He tried to shift the blame entirely onto his father, saying he had no idea Victor would take things so far. But his past involvement in pressuring me, lying about the money's purpose, and conspiring with Victor made him just as guilty in the eyes of the law. His silence while his father assaulted me was evidence of his complicity. When the judge finally delivered the verdict, a wave of satisfaction washed over me. Victor was found guilty on multiple charges: physical assault, attempted financial fraud, coercion, and forgery. The judge sentenced him to 21 years in prison, ensuring he would never have a chance to manipulate or hurt us again. Ryan was sentenced to 5 years in prison for conspiracy to commit fraud and aiding in financial crimes. He wasn't as dangerous as his father, but his willingness to go along with it made him guilty nonetheless. Victor and Ryan were handcuffed in front of the entire courtroom, their faces pale as the reality of their downfall sank in. Victor glared at me as he was led away, but his threats no longer had any power over me. As the courtroom cleared, my mother turned to me and took my hand. "It's over," she whispered, squeezing my fingers. I exhaled deeply, letting the weight of the past finally lift off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. With Victor behind bars and Ryan serving his sentence, my mother and I could finally breathe again. The divorce was finalized, officially severing any remaining ties to the man who had tried to destroy our lives. But the scars he left, both emotional and physical, would take time to heal. Even though justice had been served, I knew that moving forward meant more than just winning in court. It meant reclaiming our lives. The house we had lived in for years no longer felt like a home. Every corner held memories of manipulation, fear, and betrayal. The walls had witnessed too many hushed arguments, too many nights filled with silent dread. I couldn't stand the idea of staying there, and neither could my mother. It was time to leave the past where it belonged. We put the house up for sale, and within weeks, it was gone, just like the hold Victor once had on us. Packing up our belongings felt like shedding old skin, leaving behind the weight of everything we had endured. I kept only what truly mattered: photos of my father, a few childhood mementos, and the determination that had carried me through the storm. With the $200,000 inheritance fully secured, my future was finally in my hands. I wasted no time enrolling in college, choosing a program that would allow me to build a life of independence and strength, a life no one could ever try to take away from me again. Every dollar of that money represented my father's love, his hard work, and his belief in me. I would honor him by making the most of it. My mother, too, found her freedom. She secured a job that she loved, one that wasn't controlled by a man who thought he could dictate her choices. She no longer had to worry about walking on eggshells, about keeping the peace for the sake of a man who never deserved her kindness. For the first time in years, I saw her truly happy, and that meant more to me than anything. We moved to a quiet town, far from the place where we had suffered so much. No one there knew our story, and that was exactly what we needed: a fresh start, a chance to define ourselves outside of our past. Our new home was smaller, cozier, but it was ours. There were no hidden threats, no suffocating secrets, just peace. One evening, as we sat outside on the porch, the sky was ablaze with shades of pink and orange, the kind of sunset that makes you stop and appreciate the moment. It felt like the universe was giving us a sign. We had survived, and now we were truly free. "It's strange," my mother said softly, sipping her tea. "After everything, I thought I would feel empty. But I don't. I feel light. Free." I glanced at her, seeing the weight that had lifted from her eyes. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. I smiled. "That's because we fought for this, Mom. We made it through. And we're stronger because of it." She turned to me, reaching out to squeeze my hand. "Your father would be so proud of you, Sienna. Of how you stood up for yourself. Of how you fought back, even when things felt impossible." I felt a lump form in my throat, but swallowed it down. "I know," I whispered. "And for the first time, I'm proud of me too." As I watched the last traces of sunlight disappear beyond the horizon, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I wasn't the girl who had almost lost everything. I was Sienna, and I was finally free. This story is a reminder that standing up for yourself is never easy, but it is always worth it. Manipulators and abusers thrive on silence, but the moment you speak up, their power begins to crumble. Sienna's journey proves that no one has the right to take away what belongs to you, be it your inheritance, your choices, or your dignity. Justice may take time, but the truth always finds its way. In the end, strength comes from within, and freedom is the reward of those who refuse to be controlled. Never let anyone decide your worth for you. Your future is yours to claim. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more engaging content. Your support means a lot and helps bring more powerful stories your way. Share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear from you.